Ciao e benvenuti a Coffee Break Italian.
Welcome back to the Coffee Break Italian show. Io sono Mark.
E io sono Francesca.
Come stai, Francesca?
Molto bene, Mark, grazie. E tu?
Devo dire, oggi sono un po' stanco.
Oh, mi dispiace. Allora ti serve un po' di caffè, immagino.
Mi serve un po' di caffè, sì. In these weekly episodes, we are bringing you short lessons of Italian, helping you improve your Italian, build your knowledge in the language, and most importantly, become more confident.
Sì, è vero. So, if you are listening to this podcast, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast feed. And if you are watching the video version, subscribe to our channel on YouTube.
Esatto.
Allora, Mark, di che cosa vogliamo parlare oggi?
Well, we've had a question about the definite article in Italian. And to be honest, the definite article can be a little challenging, especially if you're fairly new to the language.
Sì, è vero, ma possiamo parlarne in dettaglio.
In dettaglio, yeah, we're going to talk in detail about the definite article today. It's more or less everything or almost everything you need to know about the definite article.
Ok, allora Mark, cominciamo.
So first of all, the definite article is the word for the. But in English, we've got one.
Sì, in italiano abbiamo 7 alternative.
Mamma mia. So 7 alternatives. But we need to know, it's actually straightforward because there are very clear rules
Sì.
for when we use which one.
Sì, there is a very clear pattern and the pattern is based on gender, so masculine or feminine words coming after the definite article and number, singular or plural.
Okay, and in most cases, what the word begins with is going to give us a clue as to which article we're going to use.
Sì, especially when it comes to the masculine.
Let's then begin with the masculine singular definite article.
Okay, so the mainstream, the standard masculine singular definite article is il.
Il, so I-L, il. And that would be, for example, the boy.
Sì, il ragazzo.
The book.
Il libro.
The fish.
Il pesce.
So il each time, and as Francesca said, that's the kind of standard one.
Sì, sì.
But there are some other masculine singular articles depending on what the word begins with.
Esatto. When it comes to masculine singular definite articles, we need to pay attention to the first letter or the first couple of letters of the noun, because if we have what we define as tricky combinations of sounds, we have to switch to the definite article lo instead.
Lo. So that's L-O, lo. And these tricky combination of sounds are very specific. So, for example, the ST sound.
Sì, or S plus any consonant.
Yeah.
Sì, ad esempio lo studente.
The student.
O lo spettacolo.
The spectacle, the performance.
Sì, sì, o lo scatolone, the big box.
Yeah.
Sì, and this is basically to avoid saying il studente, which doesn't flow well phonetically speaking.
And so much of Italian is about how the language sounds and making sure it sounds as beautiful as it always is. Now, there are other particular tricky consonants as well. I'm thinking of GN, for example.
Sì, lo gnocco, ad esempio, the potato dumpling.
So we're used to seeing that as gnocchi, but if you've just got one of them, it's lo gnocco.
Sì, o lo gnomo.
Lo gnomo is a gnome, isn't
Sì,
it? Yeah,
sì. Sì.
I'm also thinking of another combination of sounds, the PS.
Sì, PS, ad esempio lo psicologo.
The psychologist, psicologo. Okay.
Sì. Z is another important letter to remember. Ad esempio zaino, backpack, rucksack is lo zaino.
Lo zaino.
O lo zucchero, ad esempio.
Molto importante anche.
Importante, sì. E poi c'è la lettera Y o Y.
Y, so that's Y in English, and that will again be lo. So we've got things like lo
yogurt.
Yeah,
sì, 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 molto bene.
So il for most nouns which are masculine, singular.
Sì.
Lo for these special ones with the tricky consonant combinations.
Sì.
But what about vowels?
Well, if there is a vowel, we basically use l'apostrophe, which means we take the definite article lo, but we drop the vowel o in order to allow for a better, easier sound.
It's back to that sound, isn't it? So let's go for the friend.
Sì, instead of saying lo amico, which doesn't sound right, l'amico.
L'amico. The elephant.
L'elefante.
The umbrella.
L'ombrello.
Or the man.
L'uomo.
L'uomo. A little bit tricky there. So masculine singular, il, lo, or l'apostrophe.
Perfetto.
Feminine singular is a little easier.
Sì, the point of reference is la for all feminine singular nouns, ad esempio la ragazza.
The girl.
Or how would you say the pen?
La penna.
Sì, or the station.
La stazione.
Molto bene.
Now, interesting there, that begins with ST, but it's feminine.
Sì,
There's
sì,
no issue
sì.
here because we can say la stazione.
See, we don't have to worry about those combinations of sounds, which we have just described when it comes to feminine singular nouns. So la zia, for example, is la zia, and we don't have to worry about the Z.
That's the and for la zia. Okay. But there are obviously some feminine nouns which begin with vowels.
See, and we apply the same rule that we have seen for the masculine. So the female friend.
L'amica.
Molto bene. Or Italy.
L'Italia.
Sì.
That's interesting. We'll come back to this a little later because we say, when we talk about Italy, we say almost the Italy, l'Italia.
Sì, sì.
But as I say, we'll come back to that a little later.
Okay. And other examples could be l'uva.
That would be the grape.
Sì, or l'emozione.
The emotion. And again, the emotion sounds strange in English, but we use it with abstract nouns. We use that definite article in Italian.
Molto bene. Vediamo il plurale.
Okay, so in the plural, let's go to the masculine plural first.
Okay.
And there we have, again, two options.
Sì, esatto. So the first option is I, which we can see as the plural of il.
Yep. So il becomes I in the plural. So we would go back to il ragazzo would be I ragazzi.
I ragazzi, perfetto. O il libro.
I libri.
Molto bene. What happens with the article lo?
Well, with lo, that has a plural form, and it's the one that's a little tricky to pronounce. It's gli.
Bravissimo, l'hai pronunciato perfettamente.
So there, if we're talking about the students, gli studenti.
Sì, sì. Oppure the rucksacks, the backpacks.
Gli zaini.
Molto bene. Or I always want to eat more than one gnocco, obviously.
Then it would be gli gnocchi.
Molto bene. The psychologists.
Gli psicologi.
Psychology, that's an irregular plural.
Psychology, okay.
Sì,
I'm learning today too. Now, also we use gli for words that begin with a vowel in the plural.
Sì, the friends.
Gli amici.
The elephants.
Gli elefanti.
Sì, gli elefanti. The umbrellas.
Gli ombrelloni.
Sì, o gli ombrelli. Ombrellone è l'ombrellone che usiamo al mare, in spiaggia.
So the parasols.
Sì, sì, ma that's also good. Gli ombrelloni in spiaggia, certo. And the men.
Gli uomini.
Perfetto, bravissimo.
An irregular plural there for
Sì, quante cose stiamo imparando oggi.
Okay, so that is masculine plural, and then there's feminine plural.
Well, the feminine is very straightforward. There is just one form, which is le.
Le. Perfetto. Benissimo. Okay, so the girls.
Le ragazze.
The pens.
Le penne.
The female friends.
Yes, before we said that we need l'apostrophe for a feminine singular noun beginning with a vowel like l'amica, but the plural is still le. So le amiche.
Le amiche. Okay. So far we've looked at the structure, how to form these or how to use the different definite articles. But what I'd also like to talk about is the whole idea of when we use it. Because it changes from in English, doesn't it?
Very often. So, yes, I would like to tell our listeners and viewers, don't worry if you see some differences between the two languages. We don't use in Italian definite articles in the same way as they're used in English, or at least not always.
Yeah. And this is not an exhaustive list because there are so many things that we can say around this. So today we'll just look at a few examples, a few situations where we do use the definite article in Italian, but we don't necessarily use it in English.
See, before we mentioned l'Italia, for example.
So for countries, we typically use the definite article in Italian.
So imagine you're saying the Italy.
So Italy is a beautiful country.
L'Italia è un bellissimo paese.
So l'Italia, the Italy is a beautiful country. And obviously that same thing works for other countries. It's not just Italia.
You need to think, as always, about the gender and the tricky combinations of sounds. Ad esempio, Francia is feminine, so la Francia, but the United Kingdom is masculine, so il Regno Unito.
Yeah, so il Regno Unito. And, for example, the United States.
Oh, gli Stati Uniti.
We've got a gli in there, gli Stati Uniti.
Lo Sri Lanka, S è una consonant. Lo Sri Lanka.
We also use the definite article for regions, don't we?
Sì, la Toscana, la Sicilia, il Piemonte, la Puglia, le Marche.
And would we use that then for the same situation in other countries? If we're talking about, for example, I don't know, Texas.
Il Texas, sì, okay. E penso anche alle regioni della Gran Bretagna, il Devon.
Il Devon. Okay.
La Cornovaglia.
Oh wow, la Cornovaglia. Benissimo. Now, there are situations, again, where we would talk about, in English, we would say, for example, the Po or the Seine or the Thames. We use the definite article in English there. Do we do that in Italian?
Yes, in this case, we agree across the two languages. Okay. Il Po, il Tamigi, la Senna, etc.
But when it comes to mountains, that's where it changes because we don't talk about the Everest or the Mont Blanc.
But in Italian, we do use the article. So, il Monte Bianco, l'Everest, and so on.
Benissimo. What about cities?
With cities, you don't need the article. So Roma is just Roma.
There are some cities that have an article in them. I'm thinking of La Spezia.
Sì, La Spezia, bravissimo. Sì, well, La Spezia has the article which is part of the name. Or Il Cairo.
Il Cairo,
sì,
okay.
Sì.
That's interesting because we say Cairo in English, but there's not the Cairo.
Il Cairo. But what, Mark, if I were to say La Roma.
I see where you're going.
And this is not a mistake. No. What am I trying to say?
So Roma is obviously the name of the city of Rome. But when you're talking about La Roma or Il Torino.
Il Torino, sì, il Napoli.
There you're talking about il calcio.
Bravissimo, molto importante.
So these are the football teams representing, or the soccer teams representing these cities. And there's La Roma, il Torino, il Napoli.
Sì.
Benissimo. Okay, so today we looked at how to use the definite article, all 7 definite articles in Italian, and when we use them based on the different words, the different sounds, the different structures at the beginning of each noun. We've also looked at when to use it,
sì.
particularly the differences between Italian and English.
Sì, esatto, che è tutto molto importante.
Molto importante. We'll leave it there. We hope that you have enjoyed this lesson of the Coffee Break Italian show. Of course, if you'd like to see all the examples written down, then we have a blog article explaining all about the definite article, and you can find the link for that in the description.
Sì, and if you would like more help with your Italian, you can sign up for regular free email lessons.
Our email lessons include all sorts of topics about grammar, about vocabulary, useful phrases, even some reading practice from time to time. So if you would like to do that, simply head to coffeebreaklanguages.com/Italian.
Sì, è facilissimo.
We'll be back next week with another lesson for you. In the meantime, do look out for that mini lesson in your inbox if you've signed up for our mini lessons. Però è tutto per oggi.
Sì, è tutto per oggi. Grazie mille, a presto e come sempre, happy coffee breaking!
Ciao ciao! You have been listening to a Coffee Break Languages production for the Radiolingua Network. Copyright 2023 Radiolingua Limited. Recording copyright 2023 Radiolingua Limited. All rights reserved.